Meeting of Akron City Council will come to order. Clerk will read the roll.
Freeman, Fusco, Hoke, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Samples, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
For all those who voluntarily wish to do so, if you'll please stand as we are led in prayer by Rose Rose from the Haven Arrest. Following our prayer will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilwoman Sims. But before we go into our prayer, I am going to ask that we have a moment of silence for Kate Liebreth Linton. That is actually Mr. Dave Liebreth's daughter. She passed away. Dave's daughter was very big into dancing in the city of Akron, and so we just want to keep their family in our prayers. So we can just have a moment of silence at this time. Thank you. Rose Rose. Clerk will read the minutes from our previously held meeting.
Minutes from March 26, 2018. Council convened a regular session at 7 p.m. with President Somerville in the chair. Minutes of the previous regular meeting were approved. All members were present except Keith, later excused. Reading of petitions and communications. Passage of the consent agenda. Report of standing and special committees. Passage and referral of new ordinances and resolutions. Representation from various departments and divisions, public speaking period. No further business on a motion by Fusco. Council adjourned at 7:40 p.m. to reconvene a regular session on April 2nd or special call.
Any corrections or additions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Letters, petitions, and communications.
Notice of a new D5 liquor permit to MT Market LLC, doing business as the North Quick Shop, 940 Howard Street.
Special attention, Councilman Samples.
Notice of transfer of a D1, D3 liquor permit to On the Hill Pub LLC, 353 East Cuyahoga Falls Avenue.
Special attention, Councilman Kilby.
Notice of a hearing on a renewal of a permit for Joseph M. Salem, Grant Street Tavern, 1307 Grant Street.
Special attention, Councilman Kamer.
Notice of a hearing regarding a transfer of ownership application to Joseph M. Salem Hibachi Express Ohio LLC, 456 East Exchange Street.
Special attention, Councilwoman Somerville.
Notice of a hearing on a renewal of the permit for Joseph M. Salem, Grant Street Tavern, doing business as the Riviera Lounge, 627 South Arlington.
Special attention, Councilwoman Samples.
Correspondence from Joel Helms regarding the storm management protocol.
File.
Correspondent from Pamela Zach, Paul Massaro, Larry Bertel, and Tad Menos regarding the T21 tobacco legislation.
File. We have before us the consent agenda. All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Final passage, Raymond, Fusco, Hope, Kane, Key, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Sample, Sims, Somerville.
Moving into our old business rules, Councilwoman Amobian. Time will be granted. Budget and Finance, Councilman Freeman.
The committee's report's favorable, and we're asking for passage.
Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Actually, we did not ask for suspension. This has been read in 3 times.
Perfect.
Correct.
Okay. So, committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Roll call.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco. No. Hoke. No. Kamer. Key. Kilby. Milkovich. Mosley Samples. Neal. Amobian. Sims. Somerville.
Aye.
And Swirsky is not here. 1, 2. It passes 8-4, being that there's one councilman absent.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving on with planning, Councilman Fusco.
Time on the agenda.
Time will be granted. Public Utilities, Councilman Samples. Time. Time will be granted. Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian. Time will be granted. Moving into new legislation. Rules.
Item number 1, offered by councilpersons Neal and Amobian, resolution opposing the addition of a citizenship question to the 2020 or the 2020 decennial census questionnaire using adequate funding for the Census Bureau and increased in-person follow-up census counts, directing the clerk to forward a copy of this resolution and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Amobian. Time will be granted. Item 1A, offered by Horrigan and Councilman Neal, a resolution recognizing the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, honoring the legacy of Dr. King, challenging all Americans to fulfill his dream and complete his mission and declare an emergency. Councilwoman Amobian. Okay, so you're asking for suspension of the rules? Yes. Okay. Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended. Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam President and Madam Chair. I would like to correct, I do believe there were other names on there that should have been read in. I didn't want to be the only one. I believe It was a council. So I do know Sims, Novovich, Samples, Keith,
You want to make a motion as council as a whole?
Well, I don't know if. Thank you. Okay. I didn't want to assume we've had some, okay. But I did just want to stand. I mean, we all know the history of this country relating to Dr. King, what he meant to this country, but I think we sometimes forget at the time of his death, he was working on the Poor People's Campaign, and he was not loved by many in this country of his own race and of other hues. He was at a he was at a crossroads, and upon his death, of course, we all know about the I Have a Dream speech, but I do not want us to forget that he was working on that Poor People's Campaign, dealing with the economic disparities in this country and a lot of the institutional injustices that affected people of different classes as well as different races. And so this comes in to commemorate Dr. King's life, his untimely death, but really to challenge us because we are the ones that he had the dream of, that we work to fulfill that dream, and by bringing as much as possible the equity within quality of life for all those within our community, and to help fulfill his dream. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor for mayor and council as a whole. Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Yes, I'm sorry. Councilwoman Mobian?
There's a whereas in the resolution that speaks to the event that's coming up on this Wednesday. I don't know if Mrs. Nitch or Mr. Hardy wanted to speak to it, but they're inviting all community leaders to come and sign on the pledge that we would try to continue Dr. Martin Luther King's work in trying to create fair housing and opportunities for people of all stripes to benefit from the greatness of this country.
Well, that was a great summary. So all I would add is that it's Wednesday morning at the library at 10 a.m. and obviously all council and anyone from the community is welcome to join and sign on to that pledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Budget and Finance.
Okay. Budget and Finance offered by Mayor Horrigan. Ordinance approving the recommendations of certain tax incentive review councils regarding the continuation, modification, and/or cancellation of tax increment financing agreements in the city of Akron and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman?
Committee's requested this item be placed on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay. Item number 3, offered by Fusco. Ordinance approving the sale of vacant city-owned properties pursuant to the city's A Lot for a Little program in order to facilitate the productive reuse of property and reducing the cost to the city and the taxpayers in maintaining vacant lots, determining said property is not needed for public use, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 4, offered by Fusco. Ordinance approving the sale of city-owned land located at 141 Marvin Avenue to B.R. Krenz Construction, determining said property is not needed for public use and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 5, offered by Kamer. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract and or other related agreements with CSX Transportation for the construction of certain improvements on Evans Avenue, authorizing the payment therefore and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Thank you. Committee's report is to place this item on consent agenda, please.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay, item number 6, offered by Kamer. Ordinance, Kamer, Fusco, and Amobian. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee after publicly advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts for the relocation and construction of a new Akron Fire Station number 2 located at or around 952 East Exchange Street and declare an emergency.
Councilman Kamer.
Thank you. Committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
All right, thank you. This is obviously a fire station that was built around 1942. It's really in bad shape, and with the passage of Issue 4, we're able to get this new construction underway and building a new fire station, and maybe my colleagues will pass this as a council as a whole. With that, we're asking for passage.
Thank you. All in favor?
Okay. Final passes for that. Freeman, Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Key, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Sample, Sims, Somerville. Item number 7, offered by Mayor Horrigan and Councilman Fusco, a resolution congratulating and honoring St. Vincent St. Mary boys basketball team, the Fighting Irish, and their coaches on capturing the Division II State Basketball Championship for the second straight season and breaking a record for the most championships and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Neal.
Madam President, the committee's request is time. The sponsors want to make sure that the team can be here when they acknowledge this.
Very good. Time will be granted.
Okay. Item number 8. This is a substitute offered as an amendment ordinance, amending and or supplementing Title 13 General Offenses, Chapter 130, General Provisions, Section 130.02, Definitions, and Title 13 General Offenses, Chapter 139 Miscellaneous, Section 139.09 Illegal Distribution of Cigarettes and Other Tobacco Products of the codified ordinances of the City of Akron to prohibit the sale of cigarettes, other tobacco products, and tobacco product paraphernalia to individuals under the age of 21, authorizing a contract with the Summit County Combined General Health District to implement these provisions through regulations and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Amobian. Yes.
We offered a substitute, but it won't be addressed. We're taking time.
Okay.
In a couple weeks. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Time will be granted.
Okay. That's it.
We will now go to the portion of our meeting as we refer to as our public comment period. If you wish to speak to this council during this time, you may approach the podium. Please sign in, then state your full name, spell your last name, and give us your address. You will have 3 minutes to speak to this body. Speakers are reminded that this is an official meeting. Remarks should be kept respectful and germane to council business. Speakers should refrain from making any personal attacks. Anyone who breaches this quorum will be ruled out of order and may be removed from council chambers. Is there anyone here on tonight that would like to speak during our public comment period?
Hit that button, sir, on the microphone at the base. There you go.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah, then hold it up.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Now we
Okay,
get
great,
this.
great, great. Boycom Concrete LLC has allowed me to, oh, let me back up 1 second. I got a little excited. My address is 1232 Bellflower Road, Akron, Ohio. My last name is Porter. Boycom Concrete LLC has allowed me to take some research and development that I did on concrete pavement versus asphalt pavement. However, we figured out what we needed to do with the asphalt pavement. Now I have the solution to help you fix the concrete pavement throughout the city. We need to recycle what we have and keep it as a city because we need the stone. You need that raw material. You put out bids for it every year. We need to reduce the flow of traffic as far as speed, which means we need to install speed bumps to slow the traffic down. Then we need to use that same piece of land and go after partnerships with Goodyear Rubber and Tire Company, University of Akron, Stark State, the City of Akron, and the State of Ohio, to put the research and development together to pay for the raw material. If we would manufacture that material and give it to the Akron Board of Education and say, we want our kids to understand what's in this material, what makes it so strong. The educational proceeds would be great for the next 10 years. However, roller compacted concrete is a better solution when you've got construction or you've got a road that's bad and you know they're going to be up and down it because it lasts a minimum of 10 years. So I put something together, some old research I had, and I said, well, I can't give the city $1 million because I don't think I got 100,000, but I can give you this research and you can take it, we can try to come up with a solution to include the number one union in the history of state of Ohio, which is the Operators and Cement Masons, which is Local 109, which I am a member. But we got to get some apprenticeship involved. We got to get some people to put down the guns and pick up some tools because I know that if you work 12 hours a day, you'll have time to get in trouble. You definitely have a paycheck. And there's a great career in the cement masons and the plasters. So I just wanted to make sure that each one of the members of council got a copy of this. And if you had any questions or anything, I'll email it to you so it will be paper friendly. And I'll do that as soon as I sit down. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Porter.
My name is Steve Nome, N-O-M-E, address 1928 6th Street, Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. I've been here before and I've been persistent in speaking up about the exclusion of spouses and dependents from city insurance coverage. Part of it is because the city has not been willing or able to provide justification for the decision. Their inability to state the cost of providing spousal dependent coverage in the past and consequently how much they'll save by cutting their coverage makes this decision seem capricious and arbitrary to me. There is a lawsuit pending, and I fear that the law department will be putting up motions that will delay the hearing of the case. Eventually a hearing will come, but the longer that drags on, the harder it is for the retirees. Now, the next court deadline is April the 5th. But the real solution for this conflict will not come from the court, but from the city taking an honest look at how they run their insurance program. I have some specific questions that I think I ought to be able to get an answer to. What is the basis for charging $30 for a single employee or $60 for a family per month for active employees or retirees? I question, should active employees and retirees be charged the same amount? Should spouses and all their dependents be covered for only $30 a month as the family coverage allows, or should each spouse and each dependent be charged a specific amount? What has been the average annual cost per active employee, their spouses and dependents, but to the city? And by the same token, what has been the average annual cost per retiree and their spouses? The spouses being under 65 years old. And What would the city consider to be a fair and reasonable charge for retiree spouses and dependents to obtain city coverage without requiring to have OPERS coverage first? It's my belief that the amount that the city currently charges active employees and retirees is unreasonably low and will continue to make the cost of insurance coverage a problem for the city. The cost of providing coverage for retiree spouses, I believe, is not as large as the city would have us believe, so the amount being saved by cutting them off does not have a significant impact on the city's finances. But the cost of cutting retiree spouses, again, spouses under 65 years old, does create a severe financial burden to retirees, and I believe that a compromise could be reached that would allow the retirees and their spouses to continue to have good, affordable insurance coverage and still reduce the burden on the city finances. So that's what I've got. I think there's an answer, but I don't think the court is going to be the one that makes it. I think we need to look at it. All those questions I asked, I'd like to hear an answer to, because if I had answers to all those questions, I might not keep coming here, but I'm just baffled.
Steve, we have about 10 seconds.
Okay, well, I'll end it with I'm baffled.
Thank you, Mr. Knoll.
Teresa Gussie, 1213 Beardsley. I'm here to give some concerns about 355 Morgan Street, the vacant property that's been burned down and it's falling apart on the sidewalk, right up against the sidewalk. My daughter works at this Akron next door, and in the morning at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock when she was going into work, some people came out of there with blankets and stuff. There's people sleeping in there. They're doing drugs. And I know we had people down here about the cats, but the cats situation is kind of went down. And I've talked to Valley. I know they've been putting junk cars and junk over there, and he's been real good about cleaning it up. I don't know if the city knows whose the property is, because he said they were trying to find out. But it's a nuisance for our city and my community over there. I go past that place at least 8 or 10 times a week. Today I went past it twice. But there's a lot of glass and stuff, and it's right next door to the park. And on the other side of the Morgan Park, there's a business, I think it's called Slybert. They've been dumping cement and bricks. Valley said that they were told to clean it up, but because of the weather, but it's getting nice, and they need to get that junk out of there too. We want our city to be, I want to be proud of my city and have a nice clean area, and where we can have businesses coming in instead of having it all trashy looking and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gussie.
Hi, my name is John Sesic, S-E-S-I-C, and my address is 706 Lafayette Drive. Wanted to talk a little bit on the Tobacco 21 issue, from the perspective of we are Kings of Vapor. I represent them and an employee of them. Just wanted to bring up a couple things that might not have come up yet. Some basic stuff that you guys have probably heard. At the age of 18, people are, we presume they're adults, they can own a home, they can vote, be, put into the military, purchase guns, different things like that. So, having the right to be able to make the choice to purchase cigarettes or vape. Another thing is that we believe is focusing more on solutions to quit smoking, informing that 18 to 20-year-old demographic the dangers of smoking. And this is because outside of high school, there aren't many outlets to reinforce the dangers to legal adults. And some of those options that, just off the top were including more graphic and detailed warning on cigarette packs, requiring nicotine tests for pregnant mothers, and even possibly consequences for birth defects that are directly related to smoking. Another thing, if this regulation is put into place, it would be as simple as driving out of from what I understand, it's going to be city specific. So, I used Kings of Vapor as an example, or driving out of the city and, going and finding the products at an alternative location. There's gas stations on every corner. There's a number of vapor stores, throughout the city. Another issue is the buying the products. People that smoke or vape, they're going to find a way. Especially I can speak on behalf of the vapor products. Online retail is an option, and it's still a relatively easy option for people to purchase that method. There is, in comparison to smoking a cigarette's a relatively straightforward process. Using vapor products is not quite as straightforward, and there can be some dangers associated with that. So consumers having an outlet to purchase from a knowledgeable, established business that can, teach them and train them on that. I think there's some weight and some benefit to that. The other thing is just bringing up some statistics. According to the CDC, last year 18% of Americans smoked, which is down 3% from 2009 when it was at 21, and then down another 4% when it was at 25% in 1997. And a lot of this is due to, it's not due to just slapping an age restriction on it. There's taxes, there's smoke-free schools and workplaces.
You have about 20 seconds, sir.
Okay. But yeah, so those were just a couple points I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sessick.
My name is Ralph Filaseta, F-I-L-A-S-E-T-A. I live at 2240 6th Street. Councilman Freeman, Neighborhood Chief, John Valley. I know the city is not awash in money. I know it's pretty tight with cash. I would just like to see the council, the administration, and whoever's can be brought together for this problem. This city is drowning in litter. Everywhere I go, I see litter, litter, litter. Entrance ways, expressway, exit ways, side streets, blah, blah, blah. I would just like to see some possible conversation on a solution for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Filaseta. Anyone else wishing to speak during public comment period? We'll close our public comment period, and we'll go into our committee assignments. Rules, Councilman Keith. Budget and Finance, Councilman Freeman.
2 p.m.
Planning, Councilman Fusco. Public Service, Councilman Keith.
2 o'clock.
Public Utilities, Councilman Samples. Public Safety, Councilman Kaner. Parks and Rec, Councilman Neal. Housing, Councilman Kilby. Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian. Economic Development, Councilwoman Sims. Green Committee, Councilman Neal. Is there anything else coming before Council? Councilwoman Sims?
Just a little reminder, I had an opportunity to talk to most of all the members of council. On April the 16th, there is a group of elementary students, about 60 or 70 of them have been working on a letter writing campaign to support leaders in Akron and Summit County. And they'd like to come down and present their letters they've been working on to council members. So if you're available, if you could let Sarah know, it's on the 16th, it'll be at 12 noon right here in Chambers. So I hope as many members of council that can be there, that you would be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Sims. Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to restate, last week called for an executive session for an update on where we were with the health discussion. There are some things that we can discuss as a council that we have not discussed, and those are the numbers that made us make our original decision. We've had members from the retiree community come down and share. So I'm requesting, since no one was prepared in Mr. Rice's stead, that we be prepared, someone be prepared to give us the numbers next Monday. You know, one of the things that we just passed a resolution talking about Dr. King. one of the things that he challenged was, I have no other way to say it but lip service. One of the things that we're going to speak of on Wednesday is not just, hopefully, just signing a document talking about a beloved community, but understanding as legislators, using the power that we have to create policy that brings about the change to address certain issues. Mentioned this afternoon, we've got Second Chance Village, dealing with poverty, one of the main issues Dr. King was talking about. We can't just keep kicking that can down the road. As legislators, we have to come up with creative ways to deal with the poverty in our community. And, you know, when we talk about this, the health care and our retirees, in our legislation and in the promotion that we talk about an equitable health care service for retirees and employees. I've asked, haven't gotten a response yet, on what is our city's definition of equality and what is our city's definition of equity. And for those of you who are familiar with the church, equitable is this. In the church, you tithe 10%. If you make $100 and I make 10, you give 10, I give $1. If we're saying that we promoted, that we created an equitable health care service, if we're creating and it's supposed to be equitable for our retirees and our employees, then we have to take a serious look at that. Because what they're coming down and telling us is that it's not equitable. And this isn't laying blame on anyone, but the reality is this. I was a part of those discussions. I know what we said. The bottom line is either as a city we can afford to do this or we can't. But not having a discussion doesn't do any of us any good. And we're creating a hardship for those who gave 30 years of their life to this city. And it's just an honest thing. We look at the numbers and we either tell them we can or we can't. But avoiding the conversation does none of us any good. So I'm hoping that next Monday we can go into executive session and address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. Is there a second? All in favor? Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
This concludes the library.